is 2 o'clock Pacific Standard Time on the dot. Um, and we are ready to kick off our next round of soft skills seminars. For those of you who haven't been a part of this call yet, just to give you a heads up, we are recording this call. So just keep that in mind. You should see a notification at the top of your screen telling you of this, but we want to make sure that those who were unable to attend today can still listen to all the great material that we covered. I don't know about you guys, but I'm very excited for this week's soft skills seminar. We have a wonderful market director out of the Pacific Northwest on the phone today to help cover our effective communication soft skill today. But anyway, Miss Christine, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Mary. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. Well, I want to hand the mic over to you. Do you mind just starting with a little bit about yourself before we jump into the content?
No, I am ready to go. Hey,
All
y'all.
right.
My name's Christine Dunaway. Like Mary had said, I'm a market director out of the Pacific Northwest. My home location is Linwood, Washington, which is the furthest northwest location in the United States. And I've been with the company over a decade now. I know that I've met some of y'all through my travels, so I'm excited to be on this call and go through effective communication with y'all. And you got the screen, right, Mary? Okay, perfect. So today on our soft skills, we're going to be talking about effective communication. And what is that exactly? Well, effective communication is the process of exchanging ideas, thoughts, opinions, knowledge, and data so that a message can be received and understood with clarity and purpose. When we communicate effectively, both the sender and receiver feel satisfied. Communication can take the following forms, processes to reveal each side. So we have verbal, nonverbal, written, visual, listening, in person, and over the phone, by mail, and on the internet, also, as we all know, Twitter and Instagram these days. Effective communication, the 5 C's of effective communication are some of the things that we're going to be covering today. So we have clear, correct, complete, concise, and compassionate. We consider these to be the 5 C's of communication, which a lot of us have probably heard through the years of working at PF Chang's and going through our training process. Clarity is the first item on the list because it's the most important of good communication. If your thoughts are not clear, your writing will not be clear, and your reader will not understand your message. Your readers might give up altogether or form an understanding that is contrary to your objective. Keep the number of your ideas and your sentences to a minimum and don't add to abstract away from the message. Always try to use facts and figures in your writing to have a greater impact. Be clear about your message and the information you wish to communicate. Clarity will help build trust with your readers. Being concise. This helps your readers to understand your message by leading them through your information so they can see how this logically fits together. Don't lose your readers in jumbles of sentences or contradicting ideas. Always keep to the facts and really focus on your message. And then, of course, being complete. When presenting an idea, include enough information to provide your thesis. 3 supporting sentences, including sentence, are usually significant enough to complete the paragraph. Always make sure that it's to the point. Sorry, my internet's kind of going slow. Depending on this, you could also make sure that you add into the bottom as an example if you want to make sure that they are reading and understanding your message, such as email me with your questions if you have anything in regarding to the email that I just sent. Being concise, make every word count. Don't be redundant. Make sure that you're always keeping it simple and don't overword your emails. And then being compassionate, be specific in your message. Make sure that you're using precise words and avoiding terms that are too vague, such as a good example is if we're talking about a vehicle, what kind of vehicle? Is it a car, or could you be even more concise and use it as a Ford Mustang? Effective communication in the workplace. This can help you manage employees and build teams, grow your organization more rapidly and retain employees, benefit from enhanced creativity and an innovation, build strong relationships, and attract more opportunities for you and your organization. But it also helps in your personal life to be effective in communication. That could lead to improved social, emotional, and mental health, deeper existing connections, new bonds based on trust and transparency, better problem solving and conflict resolution skills. And this is a fun fact that I found was while the effective communication can build difficult to measure, its impact is hard to deny. According to one study surveyed companies in the United States and United Kingdoms, at least 100,000 employees were surveyed, and the loss was 62.4 million per year on average due to poor communication. On the flip side, companies led effective communicators had nearly 50% higher total returns to shareholders over companies with less effective communicators at the helm. And then using effective communication in action. I think we skipped. Okay, sorry. Mary, I'm trying to catch up to you. What could be stopping us from effectively communicating? The big one is stress and out of control emotion. When you're stressed or emotionally overwhelmed, you're more likely to misread other people, sending confusing or off-putting nonverbal signals, and lapse into unhealthy knee-jerk patterns of behavior. To avoid conflict and misunderstanding, you could learn how to quickly calm down before continuing a conversation. And for me, when I feel like I'm stressed and out of control emotionally and I'm going into a hard conversation, I like to go for a walk, or, most of us are in the restaurant. So even as we all probably have joked around throughout the years, going into the walk in and, counting produce for a minute and just, taking a moment to kind of recenter myself before I have to go back in there. Lack of focus. You can't communicate effectively when you're multitasking. That makes me laugh. If you're checking your phone, planning what you're going to say next, or daydreaming, you're almost certain to miss nonverbal cues in conversations. To communicate effectively, you need to avoid distractions and stay focused. And one of the reasons why that makes me laugh is we were on a conference call earlier and I was looking through this presentation, and Mary sent me an email and I had a conference call going and I was looking at this, and we were talking about this slide actually, and I sent back and I said, yeah, I was actually just reading about multitasking, and here I am answering an email, listening on a conference call. But how true that is, that at least for me, I have to make a point that when I go into a manager meeting and I'm sitting, at the manager meeting, that I put my phone away and they're not welcome at the table, unless there's like a 911 situation. Us unplugging completely and making sure that we're giving our time to the people that are expressing themselves is extremely important. And then inconsistent body language. That nonverbal communication should enforce what is being said, not contradict it. So those little things like, when you're agreeing with somebody, making sure you're not shaking your head no, or if you say it's not a big deal and it really is, and you're, aggressively clenching your hands versus, having an open posture, is making sure that you're being consistent in what your body language is saying. And then negative body language. If you disagree or dislike what's being said, you might use negative body language to rebuff the other person's message. Making sure that we aren't crossing our arms or using lack of eye contact or tapping our feet or even clicking a pen when somebody's speaking, giving them our uninvited attention regardless if we agree or disagree with what the message is. And then how to become that effective communicator, how to have that impact. The first step in becoming an effective communicator is actually to become an engaged listener. Most of the communication that happens with others is through listening first. When communicating with others, we often focus on what we should say. However, effective communication is less about talking and more about listening. Listening well means not just understanding the words or the information being communicated, but also understanding the emotions the speaker is trying to convey. There's a big difference between engaged listening and simply hearing. When you really listen, when you're engaged in what's being said, you'll hear the information coming through their voice, the emotions that they're trying to convey. When you're an engaged listener, not only will you better understand the other person, you also make that person feel heard and understood, which can help build stronger, deeper connection between you and others. By communicating this way, you'll also experience a process of lower stress and supports physical and emotional well being. If the person you're talking to is calm, for example, listening is an engaged way will help you calm down also. Also, the same goes for if the individual is aggravated, all of a sudden our emotions start getting heightened, which for me, one of the big things is, we talk about this all the time in human resources, is that when we're having those coaching moments, it's extremely important, regardless of what the situation is to have somebody else sitting there listening also, because there's always going to be somebody that if emotions get a little bit higher in the room, there's going to be somebody there that could help bring that back down. If your goal is to fully understand and connect with another person, listening is an engaged way will often come naturally. It doesn't try by following tips. There are more that you could practice. Focus fully on the speaker. You can't listen in an engaged way if you're constantly checking your phone. You need to stay focused on the moment to moment experience. Some of the things that I do to practice that is make sure that I'm making eye contact. And also, I try to look at somebody's shoulders and then back at their face. So if I'm always moving my eyes in the upper part from shoulders up, it allows me to hear the words that they're actually saying. And then the part that always makes me laugh also is the favor your right ear. As strange as that sounds, the left side of your brain is attached to the emotions. So if I listen to the right side of my ear and always put the right side of my face facing a little bit away from them, I hear it differently than if I'm facing them forward. Avoid interrupting or trying to redirect the conversation, especially if you disagree with what they're saying. If you think that, or if you try to also like overstep what they're saying too, such as like, if I'm giving you a story about how I feel or something that happened to me, and then you rebuttal back and you say, if you think that's bad, let me tell you what happened to me, right? It kind of disregards the emotions that I'm trying to explain to you and what I just walked through. I don't necessarily need somebody to say, oh, I completely understand. Let me one up you. I just want you to hear me and be that effective listener. Show you're interested in what's being said, not occasionally say, yes, absolutely, I agree, or, just say, yes, is just fine. Make sure that you're actually giving those verbal cues so they know that you're hearing them. Try to set aside judgment. In order to communicate effectively with someone, you don't have to like them or agree with their ideas, values, or opinions. However, you do need to set aside your judgment and withhold blame and criticism in order to fully understand them. The most difficult communication, when successfully executed, can often lead to an unlikely connection with someone. And provide feedback. If there seems to be a disconnect, reflect on what's being said by paraphrasing what I'm hearing is, or it sounds like you're saying, or a great way to reflect back. Don't simply repeat what the speaker has said verbatim, though. That when we're doing that, it means that, we're not being sincere. And sometimes the speakers could come across as thinking that we're contradicting what they're saying or being ingenuine when they're done and they're wrapped up. How to be an effective communicator. Some of the skills is to pay attention to nonverbal signals. Understand when the conversation is done. The way you look, listen, move, and react to another person tells them more about how you feel than words alone could ever say. Non communication or body language includes facial expressions, body movements and gestures, eye contact, postures, and tone of your voice. And even your muscle tension and breathing is put into this also. Developing the ability to understand and to use nonverbal communication can help you connect with others. Express what you really mean, navigate challenging situations, and build better relationships at home and at work. You can enhance effective communication by using open body language, such as making sure that our arms aren't crossed, standing with an open stance, or sitting at the edge of your seat, and maintaining eye contact with the person while they're talking to you. You can also use body language to emphasize or enhance your verbal message. Patting a friend's back while complimenting him on his successes is a good example of that. Be aware of the individual's differences. At my location in Linwood, we speak 12 different languages. It is by far one of the most diverse locations I've ever had the privilege of working with. And so it's always important for us to make sure that we take age, culture, religion, gender, and emotional state into account when we're reading people's body languages. The way that somebody communicates from, Thailand is completely different than the way that somebody communicates from Japan or Mexico, or, you know, I have Russia in there also. And to watch them come together because they're so diverse is a highlight of my day all the time. Looking at nonverbal communication signals as a group, don't read too much into the single gestures or nonverbal cues. Consider all the nonverbal signals you receive, from eye contact to tone, the body language. Anyone can slip up occasionally and let eye contact go, for example, or briefly cross their arms without meaning to. My big thing is sticking my hands in my pocket. That's a bad habit of mine. Or like if I have an apron on, I always stick my hands in my apron, trying to get out of that so I seem more engaged. Nonverbal signals that match up with your words rather than contradict them. If you say one thing, but your body language says something else, your listener will feel confused or suspect that you're not being honest. For example, sitting with your arms crossed and shaking your head doesn't match the words that you're telling others. Adjust your nonverbal signals according to context. The tone of your voice, for example, should be different when you're addressing a child or when you're addressing a group of adults. Take this into account, the emotional state and cultural background when you're interacting with people. Avoid negative body language. Instead of use of body language to convey positive feelings, even when you're not actually expressing them. If you're nervous about a situation, a job interview, important presentation, or first date, for example, you can use positive body language to signal confidence, even though you're not feeling it. Instead of walking to a room with your head down and not making eye contact, or, my favorite is always slipping into the back seat right by the back door, just in case anybody doesn't want to be recognized. But instead, like, try walking into the room with your head up, making eye contact like you own it, shaking people's hands and introducing yourself before they start noticing that you're sitting in the back corner, not being communicative with them. And this is a study that I really like, is how to be an effective communication. Say it with your body. In face-to-face conversation, body language plays an important role. Communication is 55% nonverbal. That's massive. 38% is vocal, tone of your voice. 7% is words. And then 93% of communication does not involve what you're actually saying, which to me is eye-opening. So it's, for me personally, and I get feedback about this a lot, is that I'm extremely monotone. And I know there's people laughing on this line right now that know me very well, is I have had to practice, especially when I'm getting in front of a large group, to really elevate the fluctuation of my voice. Or if I'm on the phone doing a phone interview, I have to do different things so people could tell that I'm excited. But if you were just to call me and talk to me, I am by far the most monotone, put you to sleep person within 5 minutes. So that's something that I've really had to work on, that y'all aren't listening to the words, but you're listening to the tone of my voice. But positive body language is always open. So please remember that. Use your posture, make sure it's upright, make sure your palms are open, that you lean in and listen to when speakers are speaking, and make sure that you're nodding encouragingly. Wow, my words are getting mixed up. Negative body language can include biting your lips, looking bored, crossing your arms, tapping your feet, clicking the pens, multiple things, playing with your phone, watching TikTok while other people are speaking. How to be an effective communicator. These are a couple of the things that we look at. Keep stress in check. How many times have you felt stressed during a disagreement with your spouse, boss, friends, coworkers, kids, and then said or done something that you regretted later? If you can quickly relieve that stress and return to a calm state, you'll not only avoid such regrets, but in many cases, you'll also help calm the other person as well. It's only when you're in a calm, relaxed state that you're able to know whether the situation requires a response or whether the other person has indicated that it would be better to remain silent. In situations such as a job interview, business presentations, high pressure meetings, or introductions to loved ones' families, for example, is important to manage your emotions. Think on your feet and effective communication under pressure. And those are the parts where, for me, listening to music before I walk into a situation is a huge relief for me. I'm a big music lover. Or, calling and having a conversation with a friend on my way to, a presentation or, afterwards, practicing some breathing. Communication, communicate effectively by staying calm under pressure, using different tactics to give yourself time to think, ask for a question to be repeated or to clarify of a statement before you respond. It's okay to pause to collect your thoughts. Silence isn't necessarily a bad thing. Pausing can make you seem more in control than rushing your response. I don't know how many other people on this line have responded too quickly and then, had to retract what they had said. I know that I've done it a few times in my life. Make one point and provide an example or supporting piece of information. If your response is too long or you waver about a number of points, you'll risk losing your listener's interest. Follow one point with an example and then gauge the listener's reaction to tell if you should make a second point. Deliver your words clearly. In many cases, how you say